The black flies are so bad that we have to put up fly traps. Hundreds of them, yeah. If we don't kill this fly, maybe all its descendants will not come. Yeah. Yeah. I'd say yes. Yogi, hey. Super fly. Last week, funny enough, there was a huge black fly that flew in my mom's bathroom. Wouldn't fly out the window. For it to fly out, so I said up. And the fly flew up. Said out twice, pointed towards the window, and then it flew out. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Like, sometimes it just blows your mind. When, like, I stick my finger out and I'm like, come on. And they literally, like, will come. And it's like, what is going on here? Is this just one of those random circumstance, random coincidence where it's like, we think that there's something there when there really isn't? But it is one of those things where it's like, if it keeps happening, then you're really like, I don't get it. I don't understand what is happening here. Is anything happening? Ah, thank you, Sketty. It's just one of those fun little things in life, I guess. Like, I really enjoy that I'm easily amused. Like, it's one of those things where it just makes life a little more fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't hurt anybody else. It's just one of those ways that, you know, we keep ourselves entertained. Good clean fun. Good clean fly fun. Fly fun. Fly fun. Say that 10 times fast. Okay, now I want to get into the meat of the movement. Probably say that one 10 times fast as well. I was just thinking, you know what else I was just coming to the realization of is that I embrace a challenge. So maybe this applies to one of you or a family member. But there's somebody that's really good at killing flies, right? And like, they'll advertise it like, oh, I'm just a fly slayer, you know, I'm able to just like swat them out of the sky. It's like, all right. Like it was like that in that moment when that fly was just right there. I was like, I could just so easily murk this. Like, it's just too easy. But, you know, at the time I was like, well, why am I getting all worked up over this tiny little creature? And then I was like, what if I could just tell it to go away instead of killing it? That seems challenging. Seems impossible is what it seems. In the moment though, I was like, you know what? Clearly this thing is bored. And I'm its source of entertainment right now, so how does that make me feel? This thing is bored out of its gourd, and it just wants some attention from me. So now, I think the temptation is to remove this piece, maybe even remove that piece. Oh, hey Raiders. Shield Maiden, hey, welcome. How was the stream? How are we doing? You guys having a good time? Welcome to my stream, where we are currently in the process of a disassembly. And yeah, it's going good. We are Legion. Giga Raid. Sketty, I bought a little basket of watches from a sale a few days ago. Figure I might try and see if I can get any of them running. Right on. Very cool. Figure just take a few pictures as I take them apart so I have a reference when I put them back. Yeah, that's always a great way to go about it. As well as maybe going on to Cousins UK and seeing if, well, first you need to identify what the movements are, right? And generally you're going to find that information around the balance assembly area. And in this case, ironically, it's not in that area. In this case, it's located up here, but it was also on the top plate here. It's kind of atypical. Like this one told you on the rotor, it's a Lemania. Told you on the main plate, it's a 5100. But normally when it comes down to it, you've got your balance assembly. And you might find that the stamp is going to be in this area, somewhere around the balance wheel. Could be over here, could be over here, over here. Typically you're going to find that shield in that sort of area. So what do you do once you have that information? Once you have that shield? Well, normally I look in a book, and over time you get used to the shield markings. Oh, okay. Don't get distracted, Horo. Alright, so I just searched watchmakers, manufacturers marks. And this was one of the images. Oh. Oh, it's Pinterest? Oh, get the F out of here. Anyway, so there's our R for Valjoux, ST for standard. You got the Omega logo for Omega, of course. Zodiac. So, and this one is Lemania, LWC right here. So what you're gonna see, there's Landron, the big L. In the lot of movements that you would typically buy, you're probably gonna see standard. You're probably gonna see A Shield. Where is A Shield? You might see the star here for Venus. UT, Unitas. I don't see A Shield on here. Perso, P. FE for font. Oh, that's TE. F, like fonts, FE, or a big F, I think. Very common. But there's more than what they're listing here. So if you don't see it, keep looking around on the different pictures. Let's see if I can find a better one. Baumgartner. You find that with the 1 jewel watches. Bedlatch, it's a common one. Of course, ETA, ETA. Big F is for Felsa. Felsa's common. Fourier, FEF. There's our font logo. It's like the double F, but backward mirrored F. So once you know the manufacturer, what you can do is, you go over to Cousins. And you've got a font, I don't know, 73. I don't even know if that's a thing. And then over in the related documents, you're going to find anything related to your search. So then you click on one of the suckers. Boom. Now this might be a parts list, it might be a parts explosion, or it might be engineering sheets like this one. And this is just giving you dimensions of things. Anyway. This time we're having a tarot readings. Strange to catch you on this early. Cool. Caster Blaster, first time watcher, what can I expect from you throughout the duration of your stream. Sometimes it's just dependent on my mood. Like sometimes it's a whole lot of talking, not a lot of working. Other times it's a lot of working, not a whole lot of talking. But generally, it's going to be watch work focused and generally educational. And certainly what you can almost always expect is that I'm very behind on chat. So if you ask a question, don't get too disheartened if I don't answer it right away. Hang in there. I'll get to it eventually. And if I don't, ask it again. Or if you just want to share something, feel free. I thought there was 4. Guess not. Gail, any opinion on Shinola watches? I saw they came out with a new mechanical watch. I've replaced a lot of movements in Shinolas over the years. Not anything more than any other quartz company. Not to say like they're suspect of failure or anything like that. They typically have Ronda movements, which is a mid-grade quartz movement. When they first came out, I believe they advertised themselves as being made in the US, which is a big no-no if they're not actually all made in the US. So I think regulators cracked down on them, and they couldn't label their stuff as made in the US anymore. They're primarily assembled in the US, so the cases are made in China. The dial, probably the hands, crown, bands, probably all that. And the parts for the movements are Swiss made, if I recall, and then they do the assembly in the US. So it was one of those marketing tactics where they pretty much knew they could only get away with it for so long before they would be ordered to remove that branding. But the damage was already done, so to say. So I would regularly get customers in with their Shinola watches, you know, not really virtue signaling, just feeling pride in the fact that they're supporting an American, watchmaking company. And it always felt like, I don't know, it always felt like a crummy, like sort of killjoy thing that I would do, where I would be like, well, I mean, yeah, they're based in Detroit and all that, but you just, like, people would tell me, like, I realized they were more expensive than the other companies out there, but because they're American made, it's like, of course you're going to end up paying more. And it's like, shoot, man, you kind of got suckered into the hype. And sometimes you just sort of let it ride. Like you just, that's why steal their joy. But yeah, that's really my assessment of them. They're a decent watch. They're a bit overpriced for what they are, in my opinion. And I generally don't have a pretty positive outlook on seedy marketing practices that take advantage of the consumers. I wouldn't say willful ignorance, just sort of take advantage of them, really. It's happens all the time. It's not fair. Something that they do interesting, that I find interesting in comparison to other watch companies, is how they do their movement retainers, and how that's ties into the case itself. So, say for example, like with this Heuer, you've got your case and your case back, right? This one is a screw back, so you unscrew it to remove it, or to open it up. With Shinola, what they'll do that's similar to other companies is they'll put 4 screws in the corners. But what you find is that when you take those screws out, they're really long. So those screws go down not just like to the case back, but they'll go down to almost the dial side of the watch. So what they're doing here, what's happening, is you go to remove the case back, and you've got this big chunk, this big ingot of metal that extends downward as well. And so the sealing surface for the back isn't going to be on the top side of the case. It's actually like inside. You go to remove that thing, and that riser, the seal will be around the edge of that. It's atypical, uncommon. Now, something that I suspect is that will give room for corrosion. So with this, our sealing surface is right up on top. It fits right on this lip. But right along this outside edge here is where moisture is going to sit, and it'll start to corrode away this outside edge a little bit. And also probably inside this, out on the outside of the sealing surface right here. Because anywhere you have a pocket is going to be where moisture gets trapped. So because of how they do that, it leads me to be suspicious about, well, what's happening everywhere from the back to the sealing surface down there. It's just one of those things. Made in US with foreign materials. Is that last screw not meant to be kept with the others? No. This one, actually, right now what I'm doing is putting the balance assembly back in. And that's where that screw goes. Yeah, this was something that I didn't feel too hot about. The way that the balance cock fits on the end here is a bit uncomfortable for me because it's kind of press fit. So what I'm thinking of doing is just sort of doing a little bit of finish work on the balance cock, just sort of reaming out that outside edge so it doesn't have to snap into place. So because of that, you know, right now I'm pulling on it and it's not, there it goes. To me, this is work that will help out the next person that services it. And what this will do is it'll prevent somebody from accidentally putting too much pressure there and then breaking the balance staff. So 9 times out of 10, chat, I am not going to err on the side of modifications. I won't see them in a positive light. Because they always come with unintended consequences. And a lot of times when they're done in haste, you don't have time to think about what the potential ramifications for any sort of modification is going to do. You just think in the short term, like, oh, this is a good idea, I'm just going to do it. But I always urge caution and to give pause in those moments. And I even recommend just to sleep on it. Don't do it right away. Because in the moment, we don't always respect that. We don't always really think like, well, what I'm intending to do could be a good thing, but the outcome can be different than what I'm intending, right? And that's just something that I developed over time. Because when I first got into it, I'm you know, not quite rose-colored glasses, but you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going into things thinking, oh, wow, I can make this better if I do this, this, and this. And it's like, you probably aren't going to make things better. Okay, let's see how that fits. So this here would be finish work. This would be work that would have been done, you know, from any manufacturer that's going back into it and making everything fit and finish right. Even that, I'm okay with that. That fits, actually comes out easier. Certainly easier than before. What I'll do though is I'll polish that so that it fits a little smoother and gets rid of any of the flares on the edges. You seemed to group 3 and kept the 4th to the side. Commented that you thought there was 4. That's one more. Oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Wondering if you weren't just hyper-focused on constructing and deconstructing small components. Often when you're so focused in long silent times, you can often see such individuals overlook things that would be on their peripheries. Absolutely. It's happened to me a lot. And yeah, there's sometimes where chat will be like, hey, it's right there. It's right in front of your face. All right. So that was just some emery paper, some old, well-worn, well-loved and used pieces of emery. But yeah, no, like if you guys see something that I don't hesitate. Feel free to let me know. We'll chat about it. Okay, anytime you go to tighten a balance cock, you want to get that balance wheel moving, because that way you can see if there's any stress or pressure being put on it while you're tightening the screw. What will happen sometimes is you get that moving and you go to tighten it, and then all of a sudden, abruptly, the balance wheel stops. And then you know that the pivots are being put under pressure. So at that moment, you should stop tightening and figure out what the issue is. A lot of times what will happen is the front will come down first, but then the back won't be seated all the way. So what I recommend is that, if you're tightening it up and the balance wheel stops moving, loosen that up a touch, push a bit down on the back, and then go to tighten it again. And then if it still stops, then it's not the back that's lifting. What could be happening is that the pivots aren't actually in their proper locations. So that would absolutely be a time where you could easily break the balance staff simply by tightening down the screw that's there to hold it in place. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, of course. Hey, Bob, finally some order to hit the cans. Things are crazy right now. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm okay with where we're at here. Do I take that plastic piece off? No, I'm leaving that. That will stay put. Oh, but I do want to scrub that a little bit. Some old, dusty, crusty things. And the rest is going to clean up real nice. Yes, sirree. But here was the question that I had yesterday. Do I clean my vertical clutch here? I think it's a vertical clutch. I'm just sort of curious to see what that documentation I found yesterday comes up with. Is it the second one? Romania Technicals? Wasn't the Omega one. I think it was this one. So yeah, this one's slightly different because it's got the day as well as the date. But I think everything else is... pretty sure everything else is the same. Is this one gonna have that lube chart? That weird lube chart? Yeah. Okay, what I need to do is identify this part first. It might be our coupling gear here. Figure 14. Coupling lever. Spring coupling lever. Oil reduction gear. Teeth of wheel. Pivot and upper. The teeth of the wheel. That is, ugh, I wouldn't do that. Usually you're not gonna lubricate wheels. You're gonna lubricate the pivots for sure. Okay, 14. Where's 14? Yeah, there it is. This is totally it. Okay, so it wants to lubricate the spring surface as well as the inner bushing. The spring surface is a big duh, right? But it's pointing to like, I would think it would be pointing to the inside of the bushing. Now the question is, how do you get lubrication there? See, this section right here is plastic. So this bushing is pretty much self-lubricating. But this one here is metal, and it's the plastic part has holes in certain areas, so it almost looks like you could slide an oiler down into the hole. And this is what I was anticipating, assuming I was going to be cleaning this part. A coupling gear. Yeah. Okay, so this is the part in question. There's the holes you can see. You can almost reach. See, this side doesn't have any access to that area. There's that spring surface where it's like, okay, yeah, some lubrication there makes sense. But how do you get underneath that? How do you get in there? I think what I'll do is put a touch in between the metal and the plastic right there. That would work its way down. Put a touch underneath the spring there. And I don't think I can really reach the area in question with an oiler. I can reach it, but I can't see it. And that's very, very important. You shouldn't lubricate an area that you can't put eyes on. So for example, if you have like a blind hole where you've got like a cylinder and you got to get down into that cylinder to oil a pivot because there's a jewel underneath there, which is what you're going to run into on rotor assemblies sometimes. Sometimes you'll find that the rotor bushing assembly is going to be hollow in the middle, and there's going to be a jewel just at the other end. So sometimes you just pre-lube the jewel beforehand so that when you put it on, you don't have to be reaching an oiler down into a hole, a blind hole, where you can't see if the oil actually is making it to the pivot. So that's typically a recommendation, is if you do have an area like that. Actually, this is one of those, but it doesn't have a shaft that you can access from the other side. So you absolutely would have to pre-oil this before you put that bridge in place, because there is no access to it. Whereas those topside jewels there, you can easily oil those after, and I would recommend that you oil them after. Anyway, I guess I'll clean this part. Now this I want to put in upside down because of those holes. It's going to give you drainage. Mainspring in upside down. Gravity is your friend. Sometimes. And then, depending on where you have the most weight, and a lot of times it's going to be your oscillating rotor. A lot of times this is going to be your heavy piece. You kind of want to balance this out, so by putting some weight on the other side certainly would be recommended. And this movement really is just a bit too big for this. No, it's just my container. My container is... Some of these holes are a bit deformed. So there, that fits nice. So wherever you have the most weight, you just want to balance it out on the other side. The reason for that is my cleaner has a centrifugal dryer. So the cleaning and the rinsing, you don't have to be too concerned with. It's the drying afterwards that you have to pay attention to balance. And I'm going to do that right now. Wow, that feels good. But I'm going to move this into the other room because it's noisy. And while it's going through our clean cycles, we'll work on another watch. Ooh, nice, nice. This is my cleaner, by the way. It's a Bulova Watchmaster. I think it's Bulova. Pretty sure it is. I think it's a Type 1A. No, Model WT, which is pretty much the same. I don't actually know what the same difference is between the 1A. She's old, but I like them. They do a good job, and the sonics. The transducers are nice and powerful. It's a big bonus. Not really bonus. It's the whole goal. It's why I really like this cleaner. It's because they are nice and powerful. And before we used ultrasonic cleaners, we used centrifugal cleaners. The LNR, what was it called? The LNR, something or other. And they're reliable as all. Very, very reliable. 100-year-old units that still work just fine today. Might need to top this off a little. Yeah, just a little. Okay. Let's see if I can get it to warm up. And that's why I put it in the other room, because that noise you're hearing isn't really nice, is it? Would that be like press fit? I think it's, you're talking about the coupling gear. The spring on the outside has a collet that holds it in place. If you were to remove that collet, everything would slide off. So if that collet isn't super tight, I can just slide it off, I guess, or pull it off and then take the assembly apart and lubricate it that way. Accepting watches for repair? Not quite yet. Send you in one of my 80s Hoyer Chronos. Oh, very cool. Nice and clean. Maybe set a month or so. Yeah, so next week I'll still be streaming, but Friday I go back down again, and then I'm gonna start the process of building out the new shop, which will probably take a couple of weeks at least. And then it might be another couple of weeks before I get everything moved down in and set up. Certainly before the month is out, though, I'm going to have a very pretty clear idea as to a time frame. BM111, what kind of solvent cleaner do you use? Acetone, xylene? No. My cleaner is going to be LNR 111, the ammoniated version of it. They do make an unammoniated version as well, or non-ammoniated. And then the rinse is going to be same brand. I prefer these over the Zenith cleaner and rinse. One, they work better, and two, they have a longer shelf life. Wiring in those old LNR machines scares me. It's super basic. Sure, you're gonna find some fiber wrapped cables, but it's really straightforward to rewire them. All the xylene and hexane is a nice mix for clipper blades. Why is there ammoniated versus non-ammoniated? It might be... I've used and really liked the ammoniated version. I've used the non-ammoniated version. The ammoniated version just works better, but it is more aggressive. So if you're lazy and you leave your watches in the cleaner, maybe get the non-ammoniated version. Because if I were to leave that in there for 24 hours, or even less, if I were to leave that in there for 6 hours, it would start to eat away at the brass parts, and it could eat away at other materials as well. So it's maybe a combination of that, as well as depending on where your shop is and what's going on in your shop, you might have certain chemical limitations. Like, oh, shoot, I don't know, like maybe you're using a lot of bleach, right? And that's really the dangerous one, right? If you're mixing bleach and ammonia. Like, doesn't that make like a very nasty gas? Hey, Windex has got a little bit of ammonia, right? I was just thinking, well, shoot, what if I was using a bleach cleaner on my desk? Or maybe watching bleach using ammonia. Ah, yeah. Ammonia attacks brass or something, yeah. Just curious about chemicals. Fascinating, very intricate work you do that. Well, thanks. Typically what you're going to find on the bench is a jar of isopropyl. You might even find denatured. So isopropyl alcohol, denatured alcohol for the alcohol lamp. One dip. I'll usually have another jar of what they call one dip, which is tetrachloroethylene. Same stuff that you pretty much find in brake cleaner. It works really well for eating away at, it's a good solvent for stripping away grease, and it evaporates really quickly and cleanly. You know, when I've got deep pockets, you're also going to find probably a little bottle of Epilom. Epilom is a surface treatment for metals. It's another name for it is called Fix-A-Drop. I would love to see the MSDS on Fix-A-Drop. What it does is it makes like a molecular surface level treatment that will wick away oil. Oh, Boley's website? Interesting, and then they gave me a Mobius MSDS. (2016) surface modifier. Epilom. Swatch group. May cause long-lasting harmful effects to aquatic life. So don't flush it down the drain, huh? Here's the thing about it, though. It evaporates so ridiculously quick. I can't see possibly how. There's the aquatic thing again. I don't see possibly how it could affect that. Fresh air. Okay, don't inhale it. Generally, the product does not irritate the skin. Ugh, getting it on your eye. Ugh. So glove material. You know how certain gloves aren't gonna matter? Like if you're using certain chemicals? Like you think, oh, I got a glove on. There's no way the chemical will touch my hand. Sometimes it just goes right through the glove, right? Colorless. Boiling point. I don't even think you could get it to that temperature before it evaporates. So I guess it is a bit soluble in water. So that's how there would be concern for aquatic life. 99.99% VOC. How can they sell that in California? How is it that I can buy that? That's crazy. That's why it evaporates so ridiculously fast, I think. Volatile organic compound. Okay. Must not be disposed together with household garbage. Do not allow a product to reach sewage system. Fix a drop. Transport information. I think that's it. Well, that was fun. Chat, we're OSHA compliant. Don't report me. We took a safety break. An actual one. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to get this gasket out. Chlorine isn't nasty unless you try to breathe it. Pit stick bleach is my favorite drink. Aldi, hard water versus soft water could be a thing. I wouldn't recommend any water in the cleaning process. And when it comes to cleaning bands and cases, I would recommend, if you're going to use your concentrate, your soap concentrate, I would recommend distilled water. 2 reasons for that. One, the distilled is actually going to make the cleaner, well, I mean, you don't need as much concentrate for getting the same job done. So another one of the cleaners that I use for just regular ultrasonic purposes, which is that guy right there, is going to be like Galvex, Super Galvex, which is a Guessvin product. And there again, it's a bit aggressive. You wouldn't want to leave anything in there overnight. You wouldn't want to put any sort of painted surfaces in there. Or if you do, make sure your soap concentration is very low. Make sure the temperature in your sonic isn't hot. Make sure it's below, I would say 90 degrees. And don't leave it in there for very long because that sonic will certainly eat away at paint. Absolutely will. Also, if you have bezels, the bezel, if it's painted, even running it through a normal sonic without any soap, it's going to loosen up the paint that's on the outside of the bezel. Odds are some of it's going to come out. So that's something else to keep in mind, is that if you do have your older bezels with, enameled in numbers or painted in, something that you would want to anticipate is having something to replace it with, because it totally, it'll look like crap afterwards. So what I mean by that is, here you see these numbers, the pips in the numbers. You can already see where there's areas where the paint has come out. And usually what I'll do is I'll just fill it up. I don't have any of my markers in here. I never put them in my bench. But I've got little paint markers with the tiny little foam tips. And then what you can do is you put it on nice and thick. It's not going to look very clean at first. You just go over it, fill up all those numbers and letters real quick, and then you just grab a rag with some acetone, rub it over the surface, and you get rid of all of that excess that bleeds over the top. And then what you're left with is the paint that's in the indentations, in the, I was going to say embossments, but they're engravings, I guess, stamped areas. Okay, I'm sure the cleaner is done with its cycle, so I'm going to swap it over. Don't need mustard gas in my workshop. Is that what bleach and ammonia is? Mustard gas? TCE is hard to obtain in my area. I've been using chlorinated brake cleaner, yeah. But yeah, that's another thing. It's depending on your geographic location, you might not be able to get some of these things. What else works well aside from one dip? 99% isopropyl is decent, but benzene would work really well as well. It would work like one dip would. Shoot, my dad was telling me how they used to just have little jars of gasoline. Okay. Has Nile Red ever made it? Can we know its IUPAC name? Low molecular mass equals low boiling point. That, for the on the MSDS, it was saying its boiling point was 110 or something. That blows my mind. I would think you would get that up to, you'd get that up to 80C and it would just be gone. You only lose a drop at a time in your business. See, it's a difficult thing for me because you can get containers that are designed for, holding your Epilom. It's still going to evaporate out of the container. Something I did was I flattened the surface of this, made sure that the sealing surface was clean. It's still going to evaporate past this. Sometimes putting a piece of plastic down and then closing it is going to help, but you're still going to lose it daily. But also, another thing about it is where you want it. Where I want that epilom. And I can get into that more at a later date, but for me, the way I see it is I want it on those pallet stone, like right on the pallet stones, but I don't want it on the fork pivots. I just suspect that that's not a good spot for it. I think it's okay to dunk your entire scape wheel, pivots and all. You can dunk that entire scape wheel, but I get the impression that you just want it on your pallet stones, but not on the entire fork. You don't want it all the way at the other tang. You don't want it on the pivots because you don't want oil. Like those areas aren't going to take oil. And also that surface treatment, how is that going to affect friction? You have a highly polished surface and then you put a surface treatment on that. What does that do? Really depends on the treatment, right? So yeah, it's like you think that you're only losing the epilom while you're using it, but no, it's evaporating in the container even when you're not using it. And that stuff, what are the prices on it? I haven't looked it up in a while. Last I remember it was like $1.50 for a jar. Let's see if Time Connection has any. I'm not seeing it. Hey Paleo, thanks for the raid. Welcome raiders. How we doing? Thank you all for the new follows. What's good? What you guys up to? Some owners like that wear. Oh, you're talking about bezel wear, right? Like having it look like, you know, there's paint missing and all that. Yeah, but the thing is, if the watch comes in with all of that enamel filled in and they want you to clean it and you go to clean it and then all of a sudden you got half of that paint left, they're gonna notice that, right? Hey Nick, what's good? What you up to, Nick? Pops. Yeah, so let me swap my cycle here. We're in the welcome to the stream, by the way. We're in the process of cleaning this Heuer with a Lamania movement, and I am being bad and not swapping my cycles. So I have my cleaner in the other room because it's an ultrasonic cleaner. And it doesn't promote healthy microphone practices. It makes the mic nice and crispy, and I know how some like that aesthetic, but I don't. If you could call it an aesthetic, I mean, it's... Some streamers are into their crunchy mics, right? But I like a nice, smooth microphone. I'll just give you a sample of it though, just so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm swapping it over from the cleaner to the rinse cycle. And turning it on. You got to give it a second for the tubes to warm up because this is not a solid state device. It is a bit of a fossil, you could say. And there it is. Very crispy. Okay, enough of that. It is a bit of a fossil, but I didn't have to go digging for it. Simply found it on eBay. Octo Danny did a zoo stream. Very cool. We're at the zoo? That sounds awesome. Accumulating oil affects the reciprocating mass. Gotcha. It's not... Sure, it definitely will affect balance. So whenever you have a rotating assembly, if you've got oil globbed up on one area, it's going to affect a bit of the dynamics. But I think the main idea is that oil is going to spread no matter what you do. And to mitigate that, that's where Epilom comes in. You do that surface treatment so that you can have more confidence in the fact that where you put your oil is where it's going to stay for a duration, for a period of time. So when it comes to the fork assembly, the friction surfaces are areas where the oil is going to spread away from. So by putting the Epilom on the stones, it's going to hold that oil in place there. And by putting it on the scape wheel, it's going to hold the oil in place on the friction surfaces of the wheel. But over time, no matter what you do, it's going to spread out. It's going to evaporate. It's going to travel. But yeah, certainly Epilom helps to keep it in place. And it does reduce wear. Happy Night, loving the classic Mac Quack. Not this one though, right? Wait, where did it go?
Quack, quack.
No, not that one. Octo, I find this fascinating. Used to work in jewelry department at Sears. Loved it. Oh, very cool. Yeah, you used to be able to take your watch to Sears and Roebuck and get it serviced. But you used to be able to get a lot of things serviced. Sonic ASMR. Good for rubber tips as well. We use ultrasonics to clean otoscope tips in audiology. Wow. That's a new sentence for me. Very cool. Yeah, ultrasonics are really a marvel in my industry. Like, I don't know what I would do without sonics. For one, coming from clock repair, if I didn't have a sonic big enough, I would either have to completely disassemble the mechanism, which is kind of a pain in the butt when it comes to clock movements, because you would have to separate the main plates in order to get it small enough to fit into a smaller sonic. And that's It's a huge amount of work. So over the years, I've got progressively bigger Sonics. And the smallest one I have currently is the Watch Sonic, as well as this Stellar Sonic. Like, pretty small. But yeah. Literally, whatever you fit in that basket is what it's gonna hold. And my biggest Sonic is 20 liters. Which, as it turns out, is perfect for grandfather clock movements. Aldi 12AX tubes? Good question. What tubes are in there? Here we go. Okay, no answer. Never mind. Tubes replaced with new old stock. So what is the old stock? Two spare vacuum drive tubes. Yo no sé. I was looking up the price of Epilom though. Oh, I'll bet you this is good. So yeah, Epilom, oleophobic. Here you go. I kind of scratched the surface, no pun intended, on Epilom, and I'm sure this is much more in depth. Oh hey, here's a little fork animation. So yeah, these are the areas that I want the Epilom. I want it on the jewels. I don't want it on the fork pivots. I don't want it on the fork guard pin, anywhere up there. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that it's probably not good. Or it's probably not helpful. But yeah, this is the idea of what Epilom is gonna do, is it's gonna keep the oil right on the pallet stones and right on the scape wheel teeth. Anywho, feel free to read further into that. I was still looking for price. Depends on the brand. $180 for 100 ml, $90 for 50 ml. That's probably your best deal right here, is $134 for 100 ml. But does it have the shelf life? 10 ml for almost 56 bucks. Now this bottle, this one I think would prevent the Epilom from evaporating. But wow, you're gonna pay a grip for that sucker, aren't you? How did this end up in there? Huh? Yeah, I think that 134 was your best deal. Anywho. Sean, why so expensive? You know, I think it's a lot to do with the chemistry and manufacturing costs. But that being said, I did find one brand where it was like, I think it was close to 45 bucks for like 50 ml. But they don't make it anymore. It's like, dang it. Normally when it comes down to it, anything watch related, price wise, like even our this little jar, 2 ml of oil, 9010 multi-purpose oil. I think it's like 30 bucks. Let me just verify. $30, $28, $35. $10 ml for 82. You really don't need a lot and you don't use a lot. Something to keep in mind, like, had I the option of buying this in a 2 ml size instead of 20 ml, I would have. And can I now? Yes. But at the time, I couldn't. Worked for them right before they went under. We use medical grade cleaning fluid instead of water or jewelry cleaner. Okay, that was the other thing that I was gonna look up, was the guess when. Galvex. Because they changed up the formula and they don't really make it anymore. Okay. I have to go on their site and search it. I might want some of these. Laser engraver? Laser welder? That's what I meant. Not engraver. Do you think they're gonna list a price? Is it gonna be 40K? Learn more. That means send us an email and we'll get back to you. I think it'd be fun to mess around with, but you're not gonna find me spending money on a laser welder anytime soon. Okay, I need cleaning solutions. Supra. So it used to be called Super Galvex. It looks like they dropped the Galvex part. We would usually get a gallon of it. Almost $100. After I move, I'm gonna get some, and I'll probably just get a pint. The reason we would get the gallon size is because we would use this for jewelry, we would use it for clocks, we would use it for watches, and tools. So it's like our solution would get saturated every other day, and you know, we'd be replacing our Sonic solutions just about every other day. So it made more sense to get a gallon size. But personally, my use case is just gonna be with some clocks, like limited amount of clocks. Maybe I do get the gallon size because that 20-liter tank, the 20-liter tank, you need a little bit more. But I was mentioning about the water that you would use in this. If you're going to use tap water in your Sonic solutions, you need to use more detergent. You need to use more concentrate, more of this stuff to have the same effect. You know, if you had just used distilled water. So another reason why I recommend distilled isn't only because that it has a cleaning effect on its own, just through osmosis, and it's also, you don't need nearly as much soap and detergent. And remember, these typically aren't going to be neutral when it comes to pH. These will typically be a little bit acidic or a little bit basic, depending on which ones you get. You can get a 55-gallon drum of it. But that's something to keep in mind, is that, again, you wouldn't want to leave anything in the cleaner for extended periods of time. So if the watch or if the item isn't coming out as clean as you would like it to be, you either need to increase the temperature of your solution, because a lot of times if you have the temperature too low, it's not going to have as effective of a cleaning cycle as one that had a higher temperature. And two, it could be the solution is old, it could be that it's already saturated, and you need to replace it. So I would err on the side of caution. If you go to check your item and if it's not clean yet, you put it back in. I would say be very careful. What I would recommend is that if it's not clean as you want it, take it out, rinse it off, dry it off, and then check it out while it's dry. After it's dry, then you can get a better look onto things, and if there's like something that you can just sort of help it along. Like a lot of times before you put it in your Sonic, you might want to scrub the item with like a fine bristle brush just to get a lot of the sediment off. a lot of the surface level stuff off. Because again, you know, like I said at the beginning, there's no one cleaner that's going to completely do your job for you. It is one of those things where it's like you absolutely should do some hand cleaning. Okay, dry cycle. And then, you know, maybe we'll pop over to Pops. Aldi, I think I paid $35 for 15 ml of fancy yo-yo lube. Oh, I remember those days. Yeah. Yeah. I have to lube up my, oh God, I forgot the name of them. I don't think it was the Omega. It was the, I still have some of that lube somewhere. My dad saved it. He used it for things. I know just what you're talking about, though. Like there's those yo-yos that would have their own little plastic bushings down at the inside the yo-yo. So instead of just cord wrapped around a spindle, you know, like anyway. What was it called? The brain? No. Something like that. I just want to make sure my dryer spins up. It's acting a little lazy right now. Which normally this thing is firing on 12 cylinders even though it has 8. But it's not winding up right now. Let me give it a minute. Sometimes it takes a while for these older electronics to warm up. Come on, old girl. There we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah. All right. Sometimes you just gotta give it a little jump start, a little helping hand. Older electronics crack me up. I get a kick out of them. Easily amused, chat. Easily amused. Sean H., I'm guessing you add that into the price of the repair depending on how much is used. Oh, of course, yeah. Material costs, consumables, all of that is very expensive. Like it's, you think, oh, you know, I'm just buying a little jar here. It's not a big deal. But yeah, it's not just that little jar. You know, we talked a lot about consumables before. We've got watch tissue. We've got silicone grease. We've got all the half a dozen different types of lubricants. We've got Rodeco. Even the tools in their own right get used up. Tools themselves start to wear out. They get damaged. You've got abrasives that certainly, you know, wear out. Batteries. You've got scratch brushes. The pliers. The hammers, they last hundreds of years, so those are fine. But you got files that wear out. The brushes themselves, they wear out. like there's so much, literally so much. So, you know, it's not just that one-time purchase where you're like, oh yeah, you know, every now and then it's not a big deal. Well, all of those little things, they nickel and dime you. Berginji, hey, what characteristics does a microscope needs for not distorting the colors of the image? Many of the cost-effective microscopes have tried displaces the red with the blue. That's a question I don't feel really qualified to answer. Something that I really like about the one that I use is that it has a polarizer. So I can do that. For me, it's very useful for finding rust. So say you're looking around a certain area and you're looking for rust, like there, for example. You're just looking at the surface and you're wondering, is that just surface or is there more there? That's just surface. If there was more there, it would glow. You would see it glow red, which is very useful for me. Something that was unexpected, really. Plus it also makes the jewels look cool. But if you're looking for like accurate like chromas and all that stuff, I wouldn't have a clue as to what to shoot for, what to go for. Octo, I can't remember the name of the cleaner we used. Change it up more often because earwax gets into the solution. Try to clean the tips as much as possible beforehand. What's warming up? My cleaner, the dry cycle, is centrifugal. So, and it has a heater that blows through the center. A lot of times the heater will warm right up, but the rotation doesn't quite get there yet. So you would have your one cycle, which would be your cleaner. You would turn the knob so that the sonic turns on that side. You would have your dip. So after the cleaner, you would go into your dip, and then you would go into your rinse. And you might even have a second rinse cup that you would have to cycle out. I would recommend having two rinse cycles. Currently, I don't have that quite set up yet. I've got the cup for it. And this post is for the transducers so that you get nice, aggressive sonic, ultrasonic action out of it. But then you also have your dry cycle. So you would switch this to off, unless you were running multiple cycles through at the same time. But you would switch your sonic to off, flip your dry switch up, turn the knob, it's not a rheostat, it's not a potentiometer, it's a timed on-off switch, I forget, it has a name. Turn that sucker up, and then your dryer starts to spin. So what was warming up was that spinning motion, and a common failure point for these drying systems is the motor assembly as well as the cable that attaches the two. these get pretty hot and they spin pretty fast. But yeah, see, mine was type WT. This is type A1T. I don't think there's any difference. But there is a type 2 where the dry cycle is slightly different. So instead of like a toggle switch here, it has the upper assembly have its own separate circuit. So the toggle switch, I think, would be like up here or something. Let me see if I can just quickly find an example of that. Mark II WT. Is that it? Yeah. That's kind of it. So there. Your heater is up there. Looks like there's a min-max up there for probably rotational speed. But you still have that dryer toggle switch down there. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So having that separate canister on the side for a second rinse cycle. I need to get one of those little flanges that hang off the side, which I'm sure I could probably find and get right now. But then you have other units like this. I haven't seen one of these in person, but I have one of the previous versions of this, where it uses the same canisters, the glass jars there, but it doesn't have a base like this. Okay, this was like the first gen ultrasonic system, the Varimatic, but the one before this is the one I'm thinking of. I don't have any experience with this unit, with this machine, but I have heard that the ultrasonic capabilities is a bit limited. It's kind of weak. But again, I don't have any experience with that unit. All right, where were we? I need to grab a crystal for this, but I think Pops is gonna be ready. I think what I'll do is send you over to his stream. He's not live currently, but it'll take me like 10 minutes or so to get over, not 10 minutes, probably 5 minutes, but I don't know if he's like set up yet. I don't know if he's taking a nap or what. Centrifugal action, that sounds helpful. So yeah, those older LNR ones, they would exclusively just spin. They wouldn't have like ultrasonic setups. And it would be the circulation of the cleaner itself that, you know, really would get the unit clean. But my preference is going to be ultrasonic over centrifugal circulation. What method do you use to combat any battery corrosion? I've yet to find a good method for that in my field. With watches, exclusively only use silver oxide batteries. It can be a bit confusing because sometimes you'll find these two batteries like sort of next to each other and you think, well, they're both the same. They're both button style batteries. They're the same. They're not different, right? Or even one that's exactly the same size. There, that's better for reference. Same size can be used in the same applications, but different chemical composition. This one here is alkaline, and this one here is silver oxide. Do not use the cheaper alkaline batteries in watches or even electronics that you care about, because they are way more likely to leak. They don't have nearly as much shelf life. They don't have as good of service life even. Like, this might last 6 months in a watch, whereas this could last maybe a couple of years. But mainly the thing is, they leak. They leak. And so do silver oxide. So it's not like you can just assume, oh, I've got the higher quality battery, they're not going to leak on me. It might not. But usually what I recommend is, yeah, you can get a better deal on batteries when you buy in bulk, but typically we would only stock enough batteries that we would use in the period of a couple of months. That way we were buying batteries pretty much, because there's like almost 40 different types of batteries that you would use in watches. Most of the time they would be silver oxide, sometimes they're lithium. So the silver oxide batteries are 1.55 volt, the lithiums are a touch over 3 volts. The lithiums, it's very rare for them to leak unless they short out, or if you get water in there and they short out. But brands is also another important thing. So what I would avoid are the German and Swiss brands. You're like, what? Germans and Swiss, they make really good quality stuff. Most of the time, yeah. Batteries, not so much. The Varta, which is a German battery, I found are more prone to leaking. The Renata Swiss battery, this one already is, yeah, more prone to leaking. So with quartz movements, we replace a lot of those, right? And a lot of the times when we would go to order a movement, they would be shipped with a battery. And sometimes you would get a brand new movement and you would look at the battery and the battery had already started to leak. So it's like, okay. So the policy moving forward was we always take out the Renata batteries. Always. And we almost exclusively would use Energizer. You know, it's like with the Renata, who knows, maybe it's 1 out of 5 batteries is going to leak. With the Energizer, sometimes you would go a streak of hundreds and not see one that had leaked. And, you know, just for the sake of numbers, we'll say 1 out of 100. Now, I don't know if that's still a constant in the industry. It's been a while since, you know, we've been ordering large quantities of things and dealing with, you know, 40 battery changes a day. I've heard that the Renatas have gotten better, but shoot, that one was from a new movement. So it's like, I don't know what it is we're really shooting for as a baseline. But it's just one of those things that it just became, you know, kind of grained into me, where it's like it's not something that just goes away overnight. Somebody tells you, oh, they got good. It's like, okay, well, let's see the evidence. You know, I'm not going to use them until I see that they're actually working better, or they are actually good now. Okay. But yeah, American-made batteries, Japanese-made batteries, totally fine. So Energizer, Maxell, Panasonic, what was that one? Senkasen. Yeah, those are all good. I don't like buying hearing aid batteries in bulk for patients. They go bad. Yeah, hearing aid batteries are in a different category. I'm not familiar with them at all, except for the fact that they thankfully don't fit in watch applications. So, you know, you might have, you know, tons of different battery sizes. But from what I know, the hearing aid batteries are different, like in dimensions. How can you tell what kind of battery you have? Like voltage wise, you got to measure it. Typically, if it is lithium, it'll just say Li on it. If it's silver oxide, it'll probably, like, it might say 0 mercury. But the real trick is sometimes you find the button style batteries like that, the small ones, that are actually lithium batteries. So I think it's like SR1120 is still a lithium battery, even though it looks like a standard button style like those, where it's 1.55 volt. And you could accidentally put, you know, like a 3-volt battery in a 1.55 volt watch. Not really a common thing. But I could see how somebody wouldn't have a whole lot of experience and accidentally do that. What is more common is to see capacitors get replaced with lithium batteries. So in watches, we've got solar charged watches, we have kinetic charged watches, and those take special rechargeable batteries or cells. And you see this a lot with Casios, where it's not completely apparent that it takes a special battery. Like if you just didn't read through and your Tough Solar Casio stopped working, you might just think, oh, well, it just needs a battery change. And you forget the fact that you left it in a drawer for a few weeks. So typically in that scenario, you just put it under a bench light or a desk lamp. I wouldn't put it in direct sunlight for more than like a half hour. But really with those, you just leave them out and they're going to stay charged. But it is really easy to change one of those batteries out and not realize that it is a rechargeable battery. And sure, the watch itself will probably work, but what's happening is the solar cell is trying to charge that non-chargeable battery. So you wouldn't want to continue using that, assuming everything is okay. And those batteries are CTL 1616, CTL 1620. So if you do see that CTL on your battery, just know that it's not your standard like 1616 or 1620 lithium battery. Those batteries are more pricey, so you might be thinking like, oh, I'm saving some money just by going with a standard lithium battery. Because if you were to look up CTL whatevers, you might be spending like $10 a battery or $20 per cell. Whereas you see like the standard like 1620s are like a couple of bucks, something like that. But you could absolutely murk your watch by putting a standard lithium ion battery in a watch where, or lithium battery where it requires a rechargeable lithium ion. Okay. But a lot of times with Citizen, which uses a lot of solar rechargeable watches, they have a little metallic flange that is soldered onto the cell itself. So it's pretty apparent and obvious that you can't use a standard style silver oxide cell in there or really anything else. It has to be an exact replacement. Otherwise, that little metal flange that comes off of the battery or the rechargeable cell won't be making contact with the circuit board. So they do that primarily to assure that a normal battery isn't put in there. So for example, I just tossed this, but they probably got a section in here. So yeah, this is ST watches. So you would order their capacitors, it would come in a little plastic case like that. But there's your standard, rechargeable battery, and you can see all these little metallic flanges that come off of them. And you can see, the prices on these. That's each $16. Yeah, and here you got Seiko capacitors as well. Yeah, okay. Anyway, that's wholesale pricing. That's what businesses, are gonna. That's what it's gonna cost them. I've had people modify their hearing aids not knowing that it makes their warranty null and void. Yeah, it's the same with watches. If your watch isn't working and you ship it back to the manufacturer, and if they find that it has a standard lithium cell in a watch that should have a lithium ion rechargeable battery or capacitor in there, you're not going to get your warranty. Armor 911 made that mistake. Oof. Sometimes it's okay for a while. Sometimes, like I've had watches come in where Casio Tough Solar, where somebody had put that, standard, battery in there, and the watch came in, and I'm like, ooh, that really shouldn't go in there. And then I put a solar cell in it, and it's like the thing works totally fine. Sometimes nothing happens, but other times it does kill the watch. We use 13S, 312s. I'm not sure if the sizes are the same for watches. No, a lot of the times the hearing aid batteries are tall. They're not like pancakes like these ones, they protrude out. They have some depth to them. Like that's big for a watch battery. Like this is a 377. That's going to be like your most common battery. 364, 377, or SR626, SR620, most common ones. And then from there, you're going to have 371. Is that what that is? SR920, which is 371. Pretty much your most common. And then from there, next most common is going to be like a lithium 2016 or something like that. But something like this, a 344, that's pretty uncommon, especially in modern watches. You're going to find those in older watches. People jam in hearing aid batteries the wrong way, and the next thing you know, the battery door is broken off. Oof, that's expensive. Hearing aids are very expensive. Okay. So I removed this gasket. I'm not going to put a plastic gasket back in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sapphire crystal in here, an oversized one, and glue it in with crystal cement. Somebody had installed the wrong crystal. This one is 1 millimeter. It should be 1.5 mil. And yeah, because they installed it improperly, the seal was damaged. And sometimes you can reuse these, but most of the times, plastic gaskets are going to be a one-time use. So yeah, you can see how much play there is now. So what I'm looking for is a 36 by 1.5, and this one's just mineral glass. I think I'm probably going to need a 36.5 to fill that gap. Yeah, most likely. But I'll bring this with me down to the jewelry shop. IEC naming should have been the default. It's confusing to see batteries like AAA or button style. They're named the same way, even though they can be different material. Yeah, the tricky part is that they can be the same dimensions, even though their composition is different. Another thing to consider when it comes to leaking batteries, you should use all the same. If you have something where it needs multiple batteries,